What is up, family? Welcome back to another Saturday night live stream. This one, as you can tell from the title and from this handy little logo in the upper, left for y'all? We're talking about Project Exodus. I have two very special guests waiting backstage. They're two friends of mine. And these two women have been an absolute inspiration to me in a lot of ways. I first met them probably like 3 or so years ago. And I'm going to structure tonight's live more or less the same way I structured my conversation with Marina, the Global Black Girl, a few weeks ago. The main difference tonight is just going to be that I'm going to avoid treading the same ground that we are already covered with Marina. We're going to avoid any redundant or broad topics or questions vis-a-vis emigrating from the United States as a Black person. We've already covered a lot of those things in that live, so I suggest you watch that if you feel like we haven't addressed something that might be pertinent. We probably already did in that video. So tonight is going to be a lot more focused and specific. I'm going to be chatting with my guests. We're going to have a nice little back and forth, a little chitty chat. And then after we get through our main points, if we still have some time toward the end, we'll take a couple questions from the chat. So if you guys like me, and I imagine, of course, everybody decides to go crazy the second I hit go live. But if you like me, and I imagine you do if you're here watching this right now, you're going to love my guests because they keep it all the way real. No bullshit, none of that. What you see is what you get. That's why I love them. And I actually met them through two of my best friends and instantly knew that they were just good souls. They're exactly the kind of energy that I like to surround myself with, especially considering that when I met them, I was at a very transitional phase in my life where I was like Marie Kondoing my entire existence, including getting rid of a piece of shit ex-boyfriend, as well as a really shitty ex-employer. Thank you for the super chat, Dear Yvette, Tennessee. So I'm going to bring my guests on now. What is up, my friends? These are the Gypset Lovers, as you might know them on Instagram. Their names are Essence, aka DJ Sherocks, and Maliha. And these are truly some Renaissance women. I mean, you guys do a lot of different things.
Yes, we do. I'm getting a kick off the little boo-boo bear in the back, just having a full-on party.
Yeah, she decided now's when I'm going to play and be super distracting. Typical. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? I mean, I know y'all, but they might not. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Okay, I go first. I'm Essence, aka DJ Sherocks, aka Sherocks Yoga. First and foremost, Gypset Lover, also CFO of Black Temple. How can I do this in brief? Yeah, I DJ. I've been doing that since like 2004. I teach yoga. I've been practicing that for over 20 years, teaching for like 7 or 8. I'm CFO at Black Temple, which is our BIWOC healing community. And yeah, obviously one half of Gypset Lovers, because aside from yoga retreating and DJing all over the world, we also just travel the world together. And for 4 years, we've been doing that, and we decided to create Gypset, and here we are.
Yes. And my name is Maliha Ahmad. It's kind of hard. It's always difficult for me to talk about myself. It's interesting things, but I am the CEO of Black Temple, which again, she said is our BIWOC healing community, creating accessibility for disenfranchised communities. I'm also the CEO of Good Soup, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that helps marginalized communities cope with mental health and depression. I also have a boutique creative marketing agency called Good Social, which I've done that for almost a decade. And I'm just really an ideation fairy. You know, I'm an ideation fairy. I'm a meditation guide, and a true artist at heart. So, yeah, that's me. That's me. I won't even continue. But
many titles.
Yeah, and some of you guys may even know them just because I'm constantly talking about every Friday on Instagram Live. Essence on her DJ Sherocks handle page does a Afro beats house party, literally house, since most of us are sheltering in place, called Release. So a lot of you guys will have seen me in those chats, and you'll have seen Essence doing her thing on the ones and twos. So some of you guys already know them. Thank you, Amy, for the super chat. So as I said, these two beautiful women are friends of mine, mainly through mutual friends, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you guys over the years. So tell us a little bit about your history as travelers, both before meeting each other and becoming partners, as well as since being together over the past 4 years.
So I have always been a traveler, and I would say maybe 75% of my travel was either it was with one other person or solo. Actually, I had no group travel. So 100%, no group travel. And I've always enjoyed being able to travel by myself internationally. And it's a staple of my life. It is education for me. It is something that's so enriching and healing for my spirit and my soul path. It's just something that I have to have, is travel and immersing myself into different countries and cultures, and really learning about life fully, and embracing what it means to be a global citizen.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think travel and traveling solo is a big, like, either you have that in you or you don't. People frequently ask me, oh, like, can you give me advice on getting, the confidence to travel to Japan or wherever I've gone by myself? And I'm like, I feel like you're either made that way or you're not. And it's perfectly fine if you're not. I mean, that's what travel groups and things are for, but it just takes a certain type of personality to not only enjoy it, but to need it. And Essence, I know that you've always been a world traveler as well. So tell us a little bit about your experience traveling pre-Gyp Set Lovers and now traveling with Maliha.
Most definitely been frolicking around the globe for a while. And definitely a high percentage of that being solo, backpacking for a while and through some spots. And yeah, otherwise, if I wasn't solo, I was usually with like a partner or best friend. So I'm not a group traveler. I'm not a group kick it person in general. So traveling in a group just already seems like a fucking headache. And yeah, when we started to see each other, it was really perfect because I don't think I really met anyone who was down to go to so many places and just had that excitement of traveling and not seeing it as something impossible.
Right.
I think as being women of color, specifically Black women, people don't really feel like they have the ability to go places and they're scared to do a lot of shit. So It's awesome to come to have a soulmate and partner that's like, yeah, we can go here, we can go to that mountain, we could travel to that tip of the earth. So
yeah,
I think when we first traveled, like New York or something, I don't know, flying back from New York to LA, I don't know, it was a short domestic flight in comparison to a global one, and we realized we fly well together.
But our first overseas trip was...
No, but I'm saying like on our first flight back from New York to LA, we were like, we fly well together.
Critical.
That was smooth.
And we travel well together. That's a really big thing,
Yeah.
Both like to pack light. We don't want to be any type of baggage claim bitch at the baggage claim.
So nobody want to get off the plane and be the baggage claim bitch.
I want to get off the plane and walk out of the airport. Period.
Keep it moving.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're aligned in so many different ways when it comes to travel that it just makes it seamless.
Yeah. So that's kind of the backdrop for you all. Even pre-Rona, these two women were just never here. Like, they are always on a plane somewhere, always, posted from Bali or Thailand or, Portugal somewhere. So let's talk a little bit. We got a bit of an idea of that you guys were always big travelers. Let's talk a little bit about this most recent trip, because this was in a lot of ways, even though not the farthest you've gone, it's sort of a watershed moment in terms of you guys actually for real piecing out from the United States. And fairly abruptly, I would say. I mean, considering that, you know, it was unclear, and it still is, when a lot of the world is going to open back up for us. You guys are now in Mexico, and you basically just seized the opportunity once it presented itself to get out. So just kind of talk me through the last several months of being in LA. For the longest I've ever seen y'all in LA since I met you. And and what exactly was the thought process in taking this as the opportunity, not just to take a trip, but to take the trip and then figure things out as you go?
Well, when we lost our space, Black Temple, right at the beginning of this pandemic, it was one of those things where we were like, all right, we're not being held here anymore. And we knew that our personal lease for our apartment only had a few months left in it. And we knew that we could talk to our landlords and find a way to get out of that, because we weren't really breaking the lease so much. There was only like a little time left.
Yeah.
So we decided that it was time to plan and to start researching different countries. And we knew that we wanted to go to Central America, and we wanted to really dive into the laws and the culture of each place to see if it's a fit. You don't really know if something's a fit until you're there.
Absolutely.
But it's great to get history and background work and legislation on things that are being passed and all of that. So we spent
hours, days, nights.
Just
absolutely
each day researching, you know, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, even Portugal, Guatemala, Peru.
We watched documentaries. We looked up YouTubes on like what people were doing, how people have transitioned and, you know, into that life without like going into the typical expat kind of like journey of it and kind of like doing their own thing. We looked for every kind of information that we could find.
Right.
Just everything we could find online, we dove into it. Every question we could figure out to ask online, we dove into it. And we figured, because like she said, that our space, physical Black Temple space wasn't able to continue on, that we didn't have anything holding us back. And because we were in LA for the longest time that we've been in our relationship, we also figured, how would we want to stay here? This is what life looks like now. Is this where we want to exist in it? And while we were researching, we were just like, so whenever the window presents itself, then we need to kind of have our shit together. And so we started basically, what do you call that thing? A Google Doc sheet thing?
Yes, we created a Google Doc,
Google
folder. We created a Google folder and
it had everything.
Google Docs.
Pretty fun.
Spreadsheets that are shareable that we could just add to on to-do list, on cost of living.
Everything.
On different things on how to obtain residency in different countries, to what it looks like to gain citizenship. And we just took that time, you know, that we were quarantined to just
write it all, document every detail that we could think of to ask ourselves and everything we could think of to make sure we prepared ourselves for, because you can only prepare so much. But basically when a friend told us they were leaving for Mexico in like a week, we were like, what? Wait a minute. How? And they were like, it's open. And we were like, word?
Yeah.
Like, how? And they were like, oh, this person just went. They just got there yesterday. And it was like, what? And that person was leaving on June 16th. So on June 16th, a month and 2 days ago, they kept in contact with that friend and was like, I want every piece of information. Like, what happened when you land? What did they ask for? Everything.
Right.
They were like, basically got into Cancun home free. They were like, you wouldn't even think there was some sort of issues.
Yeah.
about 2 days later, I booked a flight one way for us to come to Mexico.
Wow. So, I mean, the whole point of this whole thing, of Project Exodus, of me having you guys on this live stream, is I'm trying to just kind of curate various resources and stories, experiences, perspectives to help Black Americans feel empowered to leave, you know, and to do so without replicating the oppression that we face here. Because I'm sure that you guys have probably felt perhaps a calling to leave. Did you feel that that was met with a new urgency when the pandemic started, or had you always said 2020 is the year that we're going to peace out from the United States?
I feel like being Black in America has always been shitty. And so therefore,
It has.
it's been a dream of mine to leave for so long. I tried to leave the United States, or rather the divided states, a long time ago. I was going to try to flee to Puerto Rico. Not like that's not, but it is a difference, and you still need a passport. And I was going to try to jet. That was a long time ago. And when I moved to LA, before Baby and I got together, my idea was I'm gonna go there for like 3 years and bounce. We started seeing each other and look up, and it's 4 years later.
Yeah.
She was interested in the conversation, but she wasn't quite ready. And I think with the pandemic popping off, her perspective of ready changed rapidly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing happening right here. It really has changed everything, because for me, before Dorona rolled into town, I was like, oh, like a 3-year plan. And now there's a certain urgency, or just like, I need to do this as soon as I can, realistically. So you guys mentioned looking at several Central or South American countries. Talk me a bit through that decision process. Is it merely familiarity with these areas and knowing that you like the vibe from traveling there previously? Is it a question of still being close enough to visit your family and friends who are still here in the States? A bit of both, rather than maybe looking at somewhere in Africa?
So I think, we've enjoyed Central America. It isn't much of a long flight, so therefore that is a plus. And of course, we've traveled to Costa Rica, we've traveled to Guatemala, and of course, we've traveled to Mexico several times. So for us, it was more like, well, we can explore other countries such as Nicaragua, or what was the other one that we were trying to?
Peru?
Well, we were also thinking about Honduras.
Yeah. Roatan, specifically Roatan.
But we've traveled to Roatan as well, and it was just one of those things where we felt connected, just really connected. Nothing against Africa. I've never been to Africa. Babe has.
I have. I didn't feel drawn to live there, but
Where in Africa?
And that's what I was about to say next. And maybe I mean, I think people think Africa, and they usually, if they're not willing to do South Africa, then it's like maybe Ghana. But I was in Cameroon, in Yaoundé and Douala, and I didn't really see, like, I couldn't see myself living there. Like, I didn't feel that way. And I know that that's just a small part. And, when I say I've been to Africa, most people think, ooh, South Africa. And I'm like, no, I haven't been to the capital of tourism, but I felt like I was in real Africa. I don't know how real South Africa feels in terms of certain things, but I felt like I was in like the Africa where I didn't see no white people. So I didn't see tourism. I saw people dressed in garb. I felt very awkward because I was in normal clothing. It just wasn't that vibe. So I didn't feel like, oh yeah, I'll just come post up here and be the sore thumb in every African space I walk into. It didn't feel diverse enough for me to want to live. And so Central America has always felt really warm for me in terms of there's deep culture. It's still brown. Costa Rica I feel really drawn to Costa Rica because the Caribbean side is predominantly Black and Indigenous people. I feel open to Roatan for those same reasons. I feel like it's a place where I see people that look like me from every complexion, but from every level of brownness. And a lot of parts quite a few parts of Central America are like that. Nicaragua is like that. It has a Caribbean side. Roatan is predominantly, Black and brown people. Costa Rica has the Caribbean side. So these things play a huge factor. Things like not being far from family play a huge factor, because if for some reason flowing in and out of the United States becomes a problem, I would like the people who are choosing to stay in the United States to not feel like it's a big leap to come visit. I want to feel like we live across the darn world and the universe.
Yeah.
And the other factors being, aside from being Black women and wanting to feel safe, being gay women and wanting to feel safe.
Exactly. That's a huge topic that I actually wanted to get into, because a big part of gathering information in terms of places where we can feel safe, not just as Black people, but as women, and intersectionally. If you are a Black trans woman, a Black gay woman, a Black trans man, all of these things need to be taken into consideration for us when we're emigrating, because even if perhaps one of those adjectives doesn't describe you, you don't want to trade your freedoms for someone else's oppression. You know what I'm saying? So in terms of the places you've traveled as Black lesbian women, where have you felt the most comfortable and safe and free? And where have you felt the most uncomfortable and the least safe?
I think we feel pretty safe in Bali, being gay and Black. We felt good in Costa Rica too, the Caribbean side, and
I would say feeling the best
in
Costa Rica, Roatan, and Bali.
Those are the three. I would say where it felt a little more like maybe we don't need to hold hands.
Cuba.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of if there's anything else we're missing other places. Cuba was definitely top. I mean, Mexico, we're not really like being flamboyant here and gay. I know that
I think it depends on where you are in Mexico.
Yes.
If you feel like you could, Mexico is really big, like the United States.
I was just about to say, I'm sure there's places where you don't want to be flamboyant here.
Where we are now, I wouldn't say I'd feel uncomfortable. If we were in Tulum, I feel like there's times when it could be cool, where there's times where it would be overlooked, no big thing, and there's times where I feel like it could be harassment. Mexico, I think, depends on what state and like town or village you are frolicking in.
Like Puerto Vallarta is gay.
Super gay friendly.
Extremely gay.
It's super gay friendly if you're a gay man.
Yeah.
Like,
so
lots of gay men there.
Jamaica, we didn't feel that safe being, lesbian women in Jamaica.
Yeah. Not surprised by that, to be honest.
Girl, letting Jamaican men know I'm Jamaican, like I felt like maybe that'll let them be a little cool. Like she one of us, but she got a girl. You could feel that machismo, that tension, that it's just it's not a place where you feel like you want to be open or just relax. You feel like you want to always kind of check in and see who it's okay with. And
I think so many places have, if you look at Latin America, there's just so much machismo, toxic masculinity occurring throughout Central America. So it's one of those things where to be a woman and to be lesbian, it's already like, those are two slashes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Against you. And there are a lot of other countries outside of Central America that are oppressive when it comes to, a Black woman that's gay. So, because there's misogyny and toxic
patriarchy.
Yeah, on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just about finding the crevices and the places that feel good to your heart and your soul.
Yeah.
And holding.
That's why we're leaning toward Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be, as I'm sure you discussed with your friend prior,
Yeah.
is a little bit more pricey in the Central American market of places to go.
It's very tourist heavy, and that's those two things
And
tend to go
so
together.
the price of the cost of moving around there is much higher than like a Mexico or Nicaragua, and Nicaragua being a place that's about 15 years behind the flow of what Costa Rica has been doing for so long, makes it, aside from the fact that it's the cheapest place in Central America, the poorest, or however one would want to see that. Problem with it is that we didn't see as much biodiversity there, which is a very important factor in terms of where we want to choose to live and create roots. And then the other thing is that Costa Rica recently, because of their new president, they've always been very liberal, but in terms of the gayness, there's a lot of rights protecting gay people now. Things like having sexual changes, sex changes, and identity changes. Like these things are accepted by law, which is a big thing, because sometimes things can be accepted. It's kind of like, oh, well, there's not a problem.
Yeah.
But if something was to happen legally, you would not be protected. And now Costa Rica, everything is protected. You can adopt if you're a gay couple, if you're a single gay person, and there's gay rights for any type of harm to you.
You can get married.
You can legally get married in the country now. Like these things, whether we want to do them or not, are just important for us to know are available to us in terms of our rights and how we would be respected in terms of the law, and just in terms of inviting people we love to come be with us, to come live, to whatever. That means that all these things have been factored in.
Yeah. That's so true, because even in doing my research, I'm kind of maybe a few phases behind where you guys are now, since you've already flown the coop. And you guys, we're going to get into this in a moment where, I mean, they were here one week and then I saw on IG they were at LAX and they were like, bye guys. So I do want to kind of hear about the actual process. You guys just, the actual logistic aspects of getting all your ducks in a row. But just staying on this topic for a moment and doing my research, because I'm still in my research phase, and then eventually I'm still going to need to visit, because you need to feel, if you feel in your heart like this could be home for you, or maybe that it is home for you, because sometimes you just know when you get somewhere. But then, some place will sound really good and they'll be like, well, it's not enforced or anything, but homosexuality is still technically illegal. And I'm like, then it's off the list. Like, I don't care if it's technically not enforced. Like, I want my friends to feel safe here when they visit me. If it's still on the books and there's still that belief system on a pretty large scale, even if they choose to look the other way or not enforce it. And that's just something that you really have to keep in mind. But so you guys are in Mexico now. You've been there not even 2 full weeks. And it took a lot of kind of seizing the opportunity. And you guys, you live a very free-spirited lifestyle, a lot of different revenue streams, but not necessarily balling out, And we talked about this privately, but just talk us through not only the process of getting your ducks in a row to actually be able to emigrate, put your things in storage, wrap things up, tie off loose ends with your lease and your landlord and all that, as well as just how you guys make it work on a relatively modest income. You're not necessarily millionaires, so it's not like you're PJing it all around the world. You have to make certain choices in your lifestyle to prioritize travel, to make it something that you're able to do as much as you have.
Yeah, I think it deals with, your priorities. Priorities, we don't deem a car in LA as something that was important. We had a scooter, something that cost $3 a week to fill up.
Sometimes $3 every 2 weeks.
Yeah. We don't. So, yeah, with that as not being an expense, there's no insurance. There's no consistent expensive gas bill. There's no expensive repairs. So that frees up a lot of money. And then we also weren't living in an apartment that charged a lot for rent. So
we also lived in a studio for almost 3 years of our relationship.
And it was because we want to travel. Travel is a part of our expenses monthly. So we need to insure. All right, scooter is the vehicle. Studio is the home. Not a big deal.
How
Yeah.
much is this ticket?
Yeah.
Yes.
So literally just factoring in, you know, obviously pre-emigrating, but factoring in, because you guys would be out of town every month, every other month at most. So budgeting the cost of travel as if it were any other expense like gas, groceries, whatever, and living your, you know, within your means, if not below your means, in such a way that you make that something that you're committed to doing.
Definitely. And not buying like expensive clothes and expensive shoes. And I mean, we had moments where we would ball out here and there when we needed to, but it wasn't a consistent thing. We weren't always shopping.
Usually for specific
It was,
situations, like, oh, this is going on, we should go get something nice or go get a fit for it or whatever, but not on the regular. We weren't shopping. Traveling was factored in like it was a part rent. It was like, what's the cost of living when we're not home? Because we also live outside of here. We also live part-time without owning an apartment in New York. And then on top of that, we're also living abroad, traveling to places, you know, 2 and 3 weeks at a time, or some like Bali. Sometimes we're like, we're going to be gone for 6 weeks. We can't have no apartment that's $3K a month if we know we're going to be gone for almost 2 months. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So
it's just priorities. And it's also like, you know, not putting such an emphasis on the material world, because we knew that our emphasis was on travel. So it really didn't, you know, phase us to have.
or to not have.
Yeah, it was just, hey, we out of here every month, every other month, because that's what our souls need.
Right.
And this is
That's
more,
what's required.
and this is more a bomb than a Benz.
Yeah, it really comes down to what you need, what is enough to you. Like if it's more important to you to have designer this and designer that, then stay the fuck home. But if you're like most of us and you're, you know, most of us are living paycheck to paycheck, you know, people would ask me questions like, well, how are you able to like take all these trips? I'm just like, it's important to me. It's not like I am rich. It's important to me. And that's how I make it happen. I adjust my spending accordingly to make sure that I'm able to do this. But I don't travel anywhere nearly as much as you guys, even still. So in terms of what you guys have done, you know, you put your stuff in storage and you emigrated in a fairly unique way. It was really mostly about just getting out when you had that window rather than worrying about having everything buttoned up. So what would be the main steps that you would suggest to someone who's looking to just get out ASAP rather than worrying about, oh, I have to have my forever home and my apartment and a job and this and that all lined up? What would you say would be the most important things to focus on to be able to do this?
I mean,
Assuming you're going to a country that's actually letting us in, of course.
right.
Well,
We have a whole to-do list that we plan on packaging. We're going to give you guys some goodies. If you can get out of your lease, get out of your lease. I think a lot of landlords right now are flexible. Whatever country you're going to, if the cost of living is cheaper, you're already winning. If you're working remotely, you're already winning. So why not lower your expenses and leave and sell things? We rehomed 55 plants and people provided us with money for our plants. We sold furniture and we took that money and we're like, okay, this is money for us to live on.
Yeah.
For a few months.
This is our cushion.
This is our cushion. Outside.
How many months of cushion did you guys plan to actually have ready?
Oh,
We
we didn't
didn't
even go
plan.
into it like that.
We just thought whatever we get for selling, whatever we can sell will be what we will eat and live off of while we're figuring it out.
Because we're also working remotely. So
right. And also for me anyway, a big part of my philosophy about money is to not have attachments to it, because whatever you make it enough.
Yeah.
You just make it enough.
But we always have that mentality. Like we have what we need what we have. And I think that the idea and the reality of that became even more important as a mantra in terms of like living by it when thinking about making this kind of transition is that, you know, we had finally had a 1-bedroom apartment. We had finally had all the plants that we kind of wanted to have. And we had finally had the apartment that felt like it could be home if we were going to be stationed in LA in the next 3 years because we had a lease with Black Temple. So now that that had all changed, it was like, well, what does life look like without that? And it meant, you know, giving up the idea that you have a home and that home is wherever your bag and your boo is, which is what I told, you know, a friend today. Home was LA and all these other things, and now home is where my bag and boo is. It's like my bag is here, my boo is here, and this is home for now. So
Yeah.
Getting rid of a
There's
lot of
some
things.
merch for you. That's another revenue stream. Home is where the bag and boo is. Make some yoga mats and some t-shirts.
Okay.
I think some of the things to do, like we did some health things before we left, like got some blood work done, but we did it all holistically because we're not down with Western medicine, and for those who are, no problem, but we're not. So
I'm with y'all.
We got some things done just health wise to just get some data. We put the things that we couldn't part with in storage that we wanted to see in our new home. So we put those things in storage because we know that you can put those things in a container and ship them.
Yeah.
And we got like all of like our banking and all of our like government and like any type of paperwork like that in order that was needed.
As much as we could.
As much as we could. So like we got our real IDs, our driver's license renewed because Babes was expiring soon and we didn't want to have to come back for that. So we went and got that stuff taken care of.
Take your important documents with you, like gather that stuff up. She didn't have her birth certificate from another state was in another state, and it was just like she ordered those things.
I had to order that stuff and get it shipped, and this was all within 3 weeks before D-Day, before we were leaving. So
hence why it seemed like we were there 1 week and gone the next, because once the friend said they made it in on June 16th, a few days later I got the flight, and so everything was like, we have 3 weeks because we have a flight to like leave
and pack up our apartment, get everything in storage, get and put a support team in order. That was something that I was, felt was very important. And we put, a list of names together of people that we can call on that have keys for certain things that, are allowing us to use the address, whatever the case may be. They have certain roles that they're happy about. They're like, I got you. If anything happens, I'll be doing this. If you need me to bring this, I'll bring this. If you need to ship something, I have your key for this. Like, having those people in order, I think, is probably one of the most important things, because you need that foundation. So even if you don't plan on going back to the States, having those people that are like, I got you. I can bring this. I can ship this. I can do this for you. I can collect this. I can tell this person no. I could, you need individuals that can kind of be your eyes and ears in the States. So I definitely that helped.
Agree with that. Unless you want to leave and be fully off grid.
That part.
Now, if you want to be fully off grid, then there's things you probably won't care about having in order. But in terms of business and ways that we are still working remotely, I did not. Let's get something clear here too. I was not working remotely prior to the pandemic. They worked remotely. I had the kind
pretty
of
much everything you do is like in groups, yoga classes,
in order to
DJing at parties.
I had to physically be somewhere.
Exactly.
In order to teach the class, I had to physically be somewhere. And for almost 4 years, she was trying to convince me to start online teaching stuff so that every time we did leave, budget-wise, that I wasn't always losing money because I wasn't teaching.
Right.
So she'd been trying to convince me, and I said no. The pandemic put me in a position where the yoga studio I worked with went online, and I, out of fun one night, thought I'm gonna DJ on my IG because I saw one person do it, and I did it, and everybody was tipping me and asking me what my Venmo was, and I was like, "This is so cool."
Which, by the way, y'all, it's in the description box as well. Feel free to tip the guests.
So if you don't think you're capable of doing stuff remote, I mean, I would say if you want to keep, if you're not looking to be off the grid, then try to figure out how that is possible for you if this pandemic hasn't sort of created that already.
Yeah.
It put me in a position to understand what it would be like if I never did have to go into a class or a club. And so it changed my perspective on being able to leave and what I could maintain. So
yeah,
I do say this: if you want to leave, money should not be the problem on why you're not leaving. We live in an age now where you could set up a GoFundMe, and there's so many people that will fucking support you and put money into that GoFundMe, and you know you can set it for whatever you want to set it for. When you think about immigrants back in the day that didn't have a nickel or a dollar to their name,
or a GoFundMe,
and they're fleeing, and they're trying to get out of their country and get to America. They found a way and they made a way, and the universe conspired for it to happen. Same can happen for anybody else that wants to leave. They can make a way. It's you can do it.
Immigrants ends up bringing their whole family over. So come on, son, you can do this.
The whole family does come over. So in a more typically complicated, but also like economically prosperous country, a country that's more difficult for them, I would say, on an economic level to
make it,
get buy-in.
Yeah,
like the rent is higher, the food is higher, and they're coming from places typically where the cost of living is much lower.
So the struggle is way more real.
Yeah,
I think that you have a will and you have the determination to do it, then it'll work out. It'll work itself out. And you should never let trivial things such as money or all of the what ifs that can come up be the deciding factor on why you don't take charge of your life and live fully.
Yeah. And you guys, I do have a video in progress on strategies to basically stretch your dollars, figure out ways to cut your cost of living down so you can start saving up, and ultimately throwing up your hands and saying, I'm too broke. That just means you're never going to get started. So don't let that be what stops you. So in terms of you guys being in Mexico now, you are, you know, again, kind of on a temporary plan. You don't necessarily know where you're going to land. What's the situation in terms of how long you guys can be there before you need to leave, since you don't necessarily know if you can even go to Costa Rica or wherever you're hoping to wind up potentially long term?
We have 180 days in Mexico. We're hoping
that's a good while.
Within that visa span, we're hoping within that visa span that we make our way to Costa Rica. If we don't get to Costa Rica, we can go to Panama.
I mean, I would hope in 6 months places start opening back up. Jeez.
We can go to Honduras. So we
hope in 3 months that at least borders have figured out ways to work it out.
So we have a decent amount of time here, and you know, Mexico may or may not be the place. It may end up being the place.
We could be here and be like, wait, we don't even need to get to Costa Rica. Look what we found.
Love this. We found a little. We could be like, we love Oaxaca.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
It's supposed to be like a magical place for women. Like, what's up with that?
I don't go there. I don't even know. We're just not. One of the things about this journey is we're not holding on tight to an outcome. The goal and the vision is Costa Rica. If that happens, amazing. If it doesn't, then it wasn't supposed to happen. And we're being very flexible and adaptable to whatever surfaces, because we also know that we're not in control. And one of the things that you really see now, and everybody should know, is that you ain't got no control over shit.
Right.
Nope.
You can plan as much as you can, but you got to jump.
Yeah.
There's
And you can't let fear of
no
failure
right.
stop you from ever beginning, because I've gotten the question a couple times from people like, well, what are you going to do if when you get to your new place, you don't like it? I'm like, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Like, you're acting as if I don't like the next place, that's a reason to never leave. Like, that's completely silly. That's nonsense. Or what if you fail? Like, what if you don't meet your timeline of leaving when you say you want to leave? Then I give myself more time. You know what I mean? I think people need to understand that you need to be able to roll with things. You need to be able to forgive yourself if things don't work out exactly the way you planned, because that's life. Things are going to come up, things are going to change. But if you are committed to your goal, you will find home.
Yeah,
most definitely.
I am not attached to anything. I'm like, we left with the idea of what we want.
We just detached from so much.
How that idea unfolds, I'm like, I'm not open.
We just detached from a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, home is where my bag and boo is. And until we build the dream, you know, out of what we find, then we are where we are and we're where we need to be.
And again, when it comes to money, it will almost certainly, depending on where you choose, of course, but will almost certainly be cheaper to live there than it does to live in the US anyway. So don't let money be the thing that makes you think you can't do it. So let's start winding things down a little bit. I do want to talk to you guys about Black Temple and what the future is for it now that you no longer have the physical space here in LA. What exactly what's the vision for Black Temple 2.0?
I like that. Black Temple 2.0 will be on our land, which we will, once we purchase that land, we will put out a GoFundMe for people to help us rebuild Black Temple. Black Temple 2.0 is also online. And we have online offerings that we offer every week. And
that's right now, y'all. It's linked in the description box.
Thank you.
So we have things weekly, and we have other Black, Indigenous, women of color come in and also provide offerings. So it's creating a more robust schedule online, as well as building the physical space whenever that manifest, which it will. It's just about timing. Mm-hmm. So being able to have both the physical space plus the online presence and community, because not everybody will be able to travel to us to the physical space, but those who do, they got so much in store for them, from like having, you know, being on a farm, connecting with the land, you know,
doing.
It's going to be an upgrade. It's going to be an upgrade.
Massive upgrade. Yeah. It's gonna be.
And for people who came in late, Maliha or Essence, whichever of you would like to, just let people know what Black Temple actually is, because I think some people probably joined halfway through.
It is BIWOC healing community. We offer radical healing through some of the most powerful different ways to tap into your inner self and the inner work. Our focus is BIWOC. Some events will be offered and opened up to the LGBTQI plus community. And when necessary, there will also be events open up to PLC community. But the main focus is BIWOC.
Yeah. All right. I think those are all my questions. So let me see if there are any questions here in the chat. Well, I've got a great comment here from New Wave Ghost, which is pretty much why we're having this conversation. New Wave Ghost is saying living in the US is an oxymoron. Nobody lives in the US. They just work, work, work until they die. Life is not about work. It's just not, at least not in my opinion. And I think the focus on celebrating work and working your way to freedom, working your way to upward mobility is completely antithetical to how you will actually have spiritual and personal fulfillment. And I think getting away from that ideology is also, like, aside from the obvious things like racism and classism that make me want to leave, that's a big part of why I want to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and dismantling, there's so many things that we have to decolonize, from resting. We have to decolonize time.
Mm-hmm.
We have to decolonize what it means to be sustainable, what
Yeah.
it means to be wealthy. Actually reclaiming those things for ourselves and creating new definitions around them. Like, I'm not interested in working hard anymore. I'm my most effective and most productive when I am well rested, when I have really been able to tend to myself, meditate, maybe write in my journal.
Yeah.
Then I can schedule some meetings. I have completely shifted. I was a workaholic. I was a workaholic. I was a work individual, and I.
She couldn't see past work.
And it was because my work, I felt like my work is what made me important.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
That's the conditioning here, though.
That's the conditioning of the American
What you
dream
do is who you are.
Work. Yeah, it's who you are. It's your identity and yourself is based off of external factors as opposed to internal factors. So when you don't have those things anymore, people go into a state of depression and anxiety because they actually don't know who they are. Their identity was wrapped around status. It was wrapped around money. It was wrapped around their car. It was wrapped around that position that they had as an executive. It was wrapped around so many different things. And they really didn't know their worth, because their worth was enmeshed in everything outside of them.
Yeah.
So I flipped the game. I flipped the bitch. And I now fully focus on my internal, feeling my internal well, and not focusing on what's outside of me to validate me or to deem me as important. Yeah, we all want our flowers, but I get my flowers a day, all day. So
right. And, so many people get wrapped up in not getting that raise, not getting that promotion, and letting that define their own sense of self and worth. And it's like, we are not our job titles. We are not our salaries. Life is not about work. Make it happen. Going back to something we were kind of touching on earlier, Make It Happen was asking about why you guys prefer, or why you think you're more drawn to Costa Rica over Mexico. At least right now, you guys did say you may end up finding Mexico is where you stay. And also, can you talk about why you might want to live long-term in Bali? Because I know you guys said that it was very gay friendly there.
Oh, well, maybe.
I don't know if I would call Bali gay friendly, because I don't know if, and I say that because being gay doesn't just stop and end with two women. And I know that men might have a different experience, and I can't speak to that one. I just know that we haven't necessarily felt any issues when we were in Bali, being just ourselves with each other.
Yeah. And you guys have spent a lot of time there.
Yeah,
2019, I was just like, they're just always in Bali.
Aside from the fact that it's too far in case we don't decide to ever visit the States, for family and things to visit. The other thing is that although we love Bali and it was top on the list for a long time, it was really hard to come to the understanding that it wasn't the right place to live long term. Is just some of the things that they have going on in terms of like the biodiversity is not there. And it's actually just it's not legal to be gay. And you can't actually own land if you are a foreigner. You would have to own land with a Balinese person, which would leave you 49% owner and then 51%. So no bueno.
Yeah, no thanks.
Unless we're trying to marry some Balinese men.
We ain't married.
That's the only way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
The Costa Rica question over Mexico. Mexico's great, but I haven't found my sweet spot in Mexico. Choosing Costa Rica due to the biodiversity, the fact that the Caribbean side has the Garifuna people and indigenous people, the fact that Costa Rica does 25% of the world's conservation projects, the fact that they do have rights for gay people. that we are covered, that we are seen and respected. I know that those things are not here in Mexico. Even though Mexico is cheaper than Costa Rica, it's not all about the money. It's about the mission and the full vision. And we need to ensure that the quality of life and where we're investing our land and our time and our spiritual juju, that it is something that
Also
we
protects
feel
us.
aligned
Yeah.
with.
I mean, that's the whole point. We're trying to find out where we can actually be free.
And what you need in order to be free is, subjective. It's
Yes.
It's different for everyone.
Absolutely.
Someone might feel like that freedom is based on the fact that, it's much cheaper to be here or there.
Yes.
All of it is cheaper than the United States for us. And at the end of the day, the factors that they've just, laid out are huge ones in terms of when we looked at everything. Because when we looked at everything, Costa Rica did have a bigger price tag than every place that we put in our Google Sheet
It's the
doc.
most expensive.
When we just mapped out numbers and looked at each column, even if it was a couple $100 more, Costa Rica was always more expensive. But then when we looked at all the things that are really important in terms of quality of life and what we want to feel, we were like, damn, Costa Rica got it all.
They don't have an army either. Like, come on.
That part.
Yeah.
No army.
There's so many pluses, and I mean, they don't have gangs. Like, it's just, it's pura vida.
Yeah.
It is.
There is a blue zone there too, and I don't know if people are familiar with blue zones, but those are the areas where the people are the happiest, the healthiest, and they live.
Yeah.
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 Nicoya is a blue zone. It is northwest Costa Rica. Doesn't happen to be the particular part of Costa Rica that we're looking to possibly own land, but just knowing that there's a little section there considered the blue zone, to me, that energy definitely that means Costa Rica has that vibration. This particular part just happened to make it on the map for that zone, but that's not something that's just in this pocket, It's
right. That's them trying to book some hotels. That doesn't mean that it's not going to have that same energy elsewhere.
True.
All right, I'm going to let you guys go, but thank you so much for joining me tonight. Everyone who's watching in the chat, I know we had some trolls rolling out tonight. I was doing my best to listen and block at the same time. But thank you, Maliha. Thank you, Essence, for joining us. I hope that this was helpful for everyone watching. Yeah, you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see the rest of y'all soon. Bye. And also, never trust anyone with a Morphe code.